Cafe the moment I realized my childhood friend had been hiding something from me happened during a completely ordinary conversation. We were sitting in a cafe, catching up after years apart. At first, everything felt normal. Stories about work, old memories from school. But then he said one sentence that made the entire room feel quiet. "I almost told you the truth back then." I remember staring at him, confused. "What truth?" I asked. He hesitated for several seconds. Then he looked down at the table and said something I never expected. "You were never supposed to find out. My name is Daniel. I am 27 years old, and for most of my childhood, there was one person who was always part of my life. His name was Alex. Alex and I met when we were 6 years old. Our families lived on the same street. Our parents became friends, and almost immediately Alex and I became inseparable. We went to the same school, played on the same sports teams, spent weekends at each other's houses. When people asked if we were brothers, we used to laugh. But in many ways, our friendship felt exactly like that. My parents trusted him. His parents trusted me. We grew up sharing almost everything. Childhood secrets, dreams about the future, embarrassing school moments. Looking back now, it is strange how easily you assume the people closest to you will always remain part of your life. But friendships sometimes change as people grow older. When we finished high school, Alex moved to another city with his family. We promised to stay in contact. For the first year we did. But eventually life moved forward. University, jobs, new routines. Our messages became less frequent. Years passed. And although I always remembered Alex as one of my closest childhood friends, our connection slowly faded into occasional social media updates. Until one unexpected message changed everything. One evening, I received a message from Alex. "Are you still living in the city?" The question surprised me. We had not spoken in nearly 5 years. "Yes," I replied. "Why?" His response arrived quickly. "I will be visiting next week. We should meet." Part of me felt excited. Childhood friendships have a way of reconnecting instantly, even after years apart. When we finally met at the cafe the following week, it felt strangely familiar. Alex looked slightly older, more serious than I remembered. But the moment we started talking, the old rhythm returned. We shared stories about the past, remembered teachers, talked about ridiculous childhood adventures. For a while it felt like nothing had changed. However, after an hour of conversation, I noticed something unusual. Alex seemed distracted. He kept glancing at the table, as if he was trying to decide whether to say something important. Eventually, he took a deep breath. "There is something I have wanted to tell you for years," he said. I laughed slightly. "That sounds dramatic." But Alex did not smile. Instead, he looked at me carefully. "Do you remember the night your house caught fire?" My smile disappeared instantly. Because that was not a memory I expected to revisit. The fire had happened when we were 13 years old. It started late at night in our kitchen. Fortunately, no one was injured. The damage was limited. But the event had been frightening. At the time, everyone believed the fire started because of a faulty electrical appliance. That explanation had always felt reasonable. Until Alex mentioned it again. "Of course I remember," I said slowly. Alex nodded. Then he said something that changed the entire conversation. The fire was not an accident. For several seconds I could not speak. The memory of that night returned clearly. The alarms, the smoke, my parents rushing everyone outside. "What do you mean it was not an accident?" I asked. Alex stared at the table. Then he finally said the words that explained everything. "I started it." My mind struggled to process what he had just said. "You started the fire." Alex nodded slowly. "When we were kids, I was playing with something I should not have touched." He explained that he had been experimenting with a lighter he had secretly taken from his older cousin. He had been curious, trying to understand how it worked. One small mistake had caused a flame to spread quickly across the kitchen counter. Panicking, he ran outside and returned home without telling anyone what happened. By the time the fire was discovered, it had already spread enough to trigger the alarms. Everyone assumed it was an electrical problem, and Alex never corrected that assumption. For years he carried that secret. "I wanted to tell the truth," he said quietly. "But every time I tried, it felt too late." Hearing that confession felt surreal. For so many years, I had believed the fire was simply an unfortunate accident. Now I was learning that one of my closest childhood friends had been responsible. But as Alex continued speaking, I noticed something important. He was not trying to excuse what happened. He simply wanted to be honest. "I know it does not change anything now," he said. "But I did not want to carry that secret forever." For a long moment I said nothing. Then I asked him one question. "Why tell me now?" Alex looked relieved, as if the hardest part of the conversation had already passed. "Because I realized something recently," he said. "If I never told you, our friendship would always be based on a lie." That sentence stayed with me. Because honesty, even when it arrives late, can still rebuild something valuable. Eventually, I told Alex something that surprised him. "I am glad you told me." The fire had been a frightening moment in our childhood. But no one had been harmed, and the damage had been repaired long ago. The real issue was not the fire itself. It was the secret he carried for years. Sometimes the truth does not destroy relationships. Sometimes it finally allows them to become honest again. Childhood friendships often feel simple when we are young. But as we grow older, we begin to understand how complicated life can be. If you discovered something surprising about someone you trusted for years, how would you react? Would you feel angry about the secret? Or would you appreciate the honesty once the truth finally came out? Let me know your thoughts in the comments. And if you enjoy emotional real-life stories about friendships, hidden truths, and unexpected confessions, subscribe to the channel, because the next story might reveal something even more surprising.